What would the Deep Dark Dimension look like? In Minecraft 1.19, a new structure called the Ancient City was added, and within this massive structure, we have this. It's quite a strange structure and is found in the center of the city. But many people believe that this is more than just an ordinary structure, and that it's actually a portal that leads into another dimension. So if that's true, what would this dimension look like? Well, in order to answer that, let's first have a look at the current dimensions in the game, so that way we can have a base to work from. First up, we have the overworld, the default dimension. This dimension is an endless stretch of land with many different biomes and vast oceans that split these biomes apart. Next up is the Nether, which, like the overworld, there are many different biomes, but instead of water oceans, there are lava oceans splitting these biomes apart. And finally, the End. Unlike the overworld or Nether, the End is just one continuous biome of floating islands, made up of endstone, with the void in between them. So now, what do I think the basis of a Deep Dark Dimension would be like? Well, I think it'll be something like the End, where there are endless floating islands with a void in between. Now, my reasoning for this is that there are already two biomes with endless areas of land with oceans splitting the biomes apart, but there is only one dimension where there is visible void splitting the biomes apart. Additionally, I think having the void being a major part of this biome fits in really well with the creepy atmosphere that is given off in the ancient city. So now, let's start the construction of the Deep Dark Dimension. To start off with, the void in this dimension would be slightly different from the rest. Instead of being like the overworld and Nether, where the void is just black, or in the End, where the void is purple, I think that a dark red void would fit in better, especially since this is from a dimension that has been most affected by the Sculk and the Evil Warden. Next up, the islands on this endless void would be similar to the End Islands, in both shape and size, but instead of being made out of endstone, they'll be made from just Sculk blocks. However, they would have no growing plants on them like the End Islands, because I see the Sculk more as a block of viruses that would be incapable of harboring life. Now, while this is a great base for the Deep Dark Dimension, just having unending empty Sculk islands would be quite boring. So to fix that, here's a solution that I think would fit in quite well, and that's having deep craters that go all the way through the bigger Sculk islands, with Sculk veins around the top. Additionally, having some small patches of Sculk sensors scattered throughout would allow for even more subtle details that just make the whole dimension feel less empty. And so, with all these features kept in mind, this is what I believe the Deep Dark Dimension would look like. But wait, this whole dimension is missing something that all other dimensions have. Unique structures. So what structures would the Deep Dark Dimension have? Well, I think that if there are going to be any structures added to the Deep Dark Dimension, they would be completely different to anything that we have in the game today. And one way for these Deep Dark Dimension structures to be unique is for each structure to be generated on an isolated island separate to the rest. Here's what I mean. With every structure in the game currently, the structure itself only takes up a very small percentage of the biome it's on. So to contrast that, for the Deep Dark Dimension, each structure would take up the entirety of an island biome. So now, imagine this, a large Sculk island with embedded paths made from deepslate that split the island into several segments. But there is one section in the center of the paths that remains untouched from any other features of the Sculk island, and on that untouched section lays a building, a deepslate temple. It has similar architecture to the ancient city, except there are hanging spawners of wardens in the center, which is something that is definitely not found in an ancient city. Also, within that building there are chests hidden throughout that contain rare items, such as disc fragments, echo shards, or even the legendary Sculk scribe button. Now, that main building is not the only part of this structure island. There are also some mysterious cages scattered on the island as well. While all these structures may sound strange, I'll explain more about them in just a bit. However, this big structure island wouldn't be the only new structure to the Deep Dark Dimension. After all, you do need a way to get to and from this dimension. So I imagine there would be another small structure island that has a portal that allows you to travel to this new dimension. I would imagine this portal would be an in-between of the End Gateway portals and the Nether portals. But instead of using bedrock or obsidian, perhaps they can use the new reinforced deepslate. And now, with these two structures added, this is what I believe the Deep Dark Dimension would look like. Except, that still leaves us wondering why. Why were all these structures built? So it's time for me to explain. Long ago in the ancient city lived an ancient civilization who were very advanced. However, at one point something went wrong, and their powerful protector, the Warden, was corrupted, which caused it to start attacking its ex-rulers. So, in an attempt to save themselves, the ancient civilization fled, and while many of them fled across the overworld, a few ventured into the large portal in the center of their home. When they arrived at this new world, they started to build a new home, which was the large structure at the center of the Sculk Island. And once they had created a new home, they then constructed the cages around the island, so that way if the Warden ever appeared, they would be able to capture it. However, things didn't quite go to plan, and when the Warden appeared in this new dimension, it made sure that those who were able to escape the first time weren't able to this time. Next, the Warden corrupted the land, turning much of the new world into a sculk-infested nightmare. And once it did that, it returned to the overworld and deactivated the main portal, so that way no one else could escape him. But maybe someone did. Watch this video to find out.